I was going to review another gifted Jura today, but I decided to go with this one instead because, well, it's actually good. Welcome back, Dram Fan. Today we're looking at an Irish whiskey. And I'll be completely honest with you, I did not expect much from this one, but I was very pleasantly surprised. Skipping ahead a little bit, but I think this one is an excellent value entry-level whiskey. This one that we've got here, it's called the Sexton Single Malt Irish Whiskey. So, as you might expect, it's a single malt. It's made from 100% malted barley. There's no grain whiskey gone into this. There's not even any pot still whiskey. It is bottled at the minimum strength of 40% ABV, which you might expect for something at this price level, but also, which I find quite surprising for something that costs as little as this, it's matured exclusively in Oloroso sherry casks. And for me, that price point that I paid for this one is £25. The normal price for this stuff is around about £30, but it's a pretty common sight here in the supermarkets in the UK now, and it's the kind of thing that you quite often see on a good discount. Anyone that's curious, I'm sure a lot of people are, a sexton is an employee of a church. So something like a church or graveyard caretaker. In the past, they were sometimes also grave diggers and vergers all combined into one, especially in small village parishes, which probably explains the slightly Tim Burton-esque theme on the label of this one. Kind of a Victorian Gothic skeleton in a top hat. It's also interesting that I think kind of what they're getting at with the name and the theme of this one is that the people who make this stuff, they're kind of calling themselves the caretakers or the sextons of the whiskey casks. Kind of this idea that they make it and then it's their job to watch over it until it's ready. As for who makes this stuff, we are not told directly, but we are told that it's from County Antrim, which immediately tells you Bushmills. The Sexton website also mentions Alex Thomas, who is Bushmills Master Blender, so Bushmills. Although in the future, with Bushmill expanding their capacity by making their new distillery, this stuff will likely end up being made at the new Causeway distillery, which is also owned by Bushmills. Long-term viewers to the channel will know that I actually quite like Bushmills. I think that they make some of the best affordable Irish whiskey, and I think importantly for Irish whiskey, I think that Bushmills has a habit of being good without being overpriced. Because it's a little bit of a controversial opinion perhaps, but I do think that while there are good Irish whiskies out there, I think it's hard to find one which offers the value for money that you get out of Scotch or English or perhaps even bourbon. I think that with Irish whiskey you tend to run into diminishing returns and the value for money drops off quite quickly as you start looking at the better Irish products. So it's nice to find something Irish which is good and very affordable and good value, which certainly doesn't apply to the other whiskey, which it was a certain product which was also a tie-in between Bushmills and a certain UFC fighter, which was bloody awful. Anyway, let's look at the whiskey in hand, get some in the glass. It is a cork stopper for the low price of £25. You can probably tell there's not much of this left, which is always a good sign. Do we know if this is natural colour and non-chill filtered? I don't think we do. I don't think they tell us, which is not really surprising. How clear it is, kind of see through that. I would bet money that it is chill filtered because it's very clear. As for colouring, it probably has a little bit. Pretty sure that they don't say, but for a cheap casual 40% sipper for £25, we don't really care. If you can see something that says that this is natural colour and non-chill filtered, let me know, but I don't think they say. So, Sexton's Irish Single Malt on the nose. Immediately, you can tell that they're not lying when they say that this is 100% matured in Oloroso sherry casks, because there's a big, intense burst of very sweet sherry. So to me, this smells and tastes like it's matured in a high proportion of sherry casks, definitely, but it also smells and tastes like American oak casks which have been seasoned with sherry. It definitely has that sweet American oak kind of profile to it, which is not surprising. In fact, it's surprising that they've done anything with this amount of sherry in it at this price, because we all know that sherry casks and casks in general are getting astronomically expensive these days. Very bright, very sweet, very full, actually quite rich, surprisingly rich and full and intense, much more than you would expect for 40%. Quite sweet and nutty, orangey, orange and lime. Very fruity, active American oak, I would say. I think it's also got a little bit of a slight metallic note, but overall, on the nose, very, very nice. Quite importantly, especially when you compare it to the proper 12 whiskey, which Bushmills had some part in, it's not noticeably young, certainly not in a problematic way. Also, and I'm pleased to say, it's also not noticeably weak. I think that if you gave this to someone blind, they wouldn't say that it was a weak, anemic, inferior experience. I don't think they'd even guess that this is 40%. So let's see how it tastes. Very, very nice. Like I said before, I'm incredibly pleasantly surprised by this one. It punches so far above its weight. Lovely, sweet, orangey sherry. Again, it's the kind of very, very sweet, kind of honeyed, sweet sherry that you get from an American oak cask which has been seasoned. But that's not a bad thing. In fact, it can be quite often a lot more approachable than proper European oak, which is quite often more of an acquired taste. Lovely orangey maltiness. I don't think that it's too Irish. It doesn't have that kind of dry, cereally, biscuity quality or the tropical fruit notes that a lot of young Irish whiskies have. But it is very, very good. Nice and sweet and nutty. Candied orange peel, a little bit of milk chocolate, and quite sweet and sour with a little hint of spiciness. Again, I think related to that slightly metallic note that I was getting on the nose, on the palate of this one you get a little bit of bitter fruit, kind of like a bitter orange peel note, and a little bit of a bitter, chalky aspirin medicinal pill note, possibly showing a little bit of the youth in this one, but it's really just a minor footnote rather than a problem. I think that in general this whiskey on the palate is surprisingly malty and surprisingly full. I was fully expecting this one to be an anemic, frustratingly weak experience, but it's not that at all. I think this could easily pass for 43 to 45%. As for the finish, have one more sip. To be fair, it is fairly short on the finish, with lingering bittersweet orangey notes. A little bit short and a little bit light, but that's kind of what you expect for a product at this price point and ABV. What is this similar to? I would actually say not Bushmills. If I was going to pick anything that this reminds me of, it would probably be Jameson's Black Barrel, and probably a little bit reminiscent of Naked Grouse as well, because Naked Grouse is the famous grouse product, which is, I think it's also entirely matured in sherry casks, or mostly. So yeah, hardly surprising that they're both affordable. This is a single malt. Naked Grouse is, or Naked Malt as they call it now, is a blended malt with a strong sherry influence. But I'd actually say that, especially compared to Black Barrel, the sherry influence on this one is not only more, but it's really more focused on those sweet sherry notes. Most importantly though, I think that with this whiskey, I think that the quality that you get out of it by far surpasses the price point that you have to pay. And I'd really be interested to try kind of a cherry-picked, higher strength, non-chill filtered version of this. I think that would be really interesting if they did that. and I think that it could pose some real competition to the likes of the Redbreast 12 cask strength, providing they did do this with obviously a much improved presentation. I would absolutely love to see Bushmills do that. As it is, I think this one it's good, and it's very, very affordable, very, very good value. Not an essential purchase by all means, but it's a clear step up from most things at this price point, and I definitely think that this one, because a lot of people are going to overlook this, it's not going to be on their radar because of the bottle. It's a bit and the price point and the fact that it's in all the supermarkets. A lot of people will walk past this one because a lot of those whiskies are crap, but this is a good one. And I think that in particular it should really be on your shortlist if you're looking for a cheap, sweet, sherried casual dram. It is much, much better than the Proper 12, which Bushmills also had a hand in. We don't know how much of what went into Proper 12 was Bushmills. We know that they made the malt content that went into that bottle, but obviously Proper 12 was a blend. And to be fair, from what I tasted, I think that the malt content in Proper 12 tasted like it was probably about 1% of what you actually got. Some people like it, but I think this stuff is on an entirely different level. Although obviously because of the heavy sherry influence in this one, it's also a very, very different flavour profile. Compared to the other Bushmills products, this is very different, and I think it's a clear step up, a noticeable step up from things like the Bushmills White Label. I would say that it's probably about on par with the Bushmills 10-year-old single malt, although again, obviously the heavy sherry influence on this one makes it a very different profile. But yeah, I like this one. Lovely, strong sherry, kind of like a little bit of a wine gums note, but not too much, but like orange jelly sweets. But just lovely, ultra sweet sherry, which I know is not really what sherry should be, because a lot of what people call proper sherries are more of a dry experience. But this one, it really has that strong flavour of sweet American oak seasoned with sherry, which is a very pleasant thing, especially when you're only paying 25 quid for it. Humble dram that punches well above its price point, much better than it has any business being. Let me know what you think about this one if you've had it, and let me know what you think are other Irish whiskey products which offer you a good level of value. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Cheers.